to Berlin, Germany. After an insane weekend in Athens, we've arrived at the final chapter on the road to Worlds. There's only one spot left, and today either Origen or Splyce will end their 2019 season as they face off in round one of the regional qualifiers. Hello everyone, I'm Sjokz, as you can see, joined here by the wonderful Ender and YamatoCannon once again. To be honest, we're still reeling a little bit from Athens, but still happy to get onto this final chapter.
Oh man, last week so insane. We can only hope to get that same, 5 games every day. Just throw it all out the window. I'm down.
I mean, that would be cool. 5 or 3 best of 5s that are as intense as that one.
15 games in 3 days.
Yeah, I'll sign for it. I'll sign for it.
Beautiful.
It was so beautiful.
Game 5 was also close. Oof.
Yeah, indeed. Last week in Athens, let's talk about it because I believe we can still talk about it for a little bit until we dive into this first best of 5 of the qualifier. We were in Athens, Greece for the epic conclusion of the LEC summer split. And of course, on Saturday, Fnatic took down Schalke. But on Sunday, we then saw a final that will go down in history as one of the greatest of all time. Yamato, you already said it. Even that game 5 was so close and the whole series was.
I reviewed the game, rewatched them very closely and intently. And it's crazy how close it was. You could consider one different play. If something goes differently, all of a sudden Fnatic has the story of the 8th LEC title, or 7th, which one is it?
Yeah, I think 8th now. Yeah, so many here for this team, but it looked like for a long time Fnatic may be going to have the upper hand in that match. It was 2-1 Fnatic on match point, but then G2 came back so strong. Caps finally showed up to play on the Silas and the Akali, and then it was smooth sailing for G2.
It was G2 taking home their 6th LEC title, and Perkz being the most decorated player in LEC history. 6 titles for him. Caps also 4 back-to-back, 2 with Fnatic last year, 2 this year. So much talent on that roster.
It seems like whatever team Caps is on is just destined to win, Sjokz. I don't know what else to say.
Well, beautiful picture, and I think it says it all, Yamato. Crowning achievement for G2 once again.
I love this picture as a, whoa.
Ooh.
It's a disaster.
It's a disaster. We'll fix that later.
I love this picture as a competitor. This is something you want to print out because this is the man and the team that you have to chase down and beat. So this is something I'm going to put up in the Vitality game.
I'm back. In 2 different roles, nonetheless,
Yeah,
fantastic stuff by Perkz. We do have a bit of news that isn't that pleasant. Due to a medical emergency, Origen's lineup is changed for this week, with Zanzara from their ERL team replacing Cold in the jungle. Of course, all the best to Cold, and hope he's feeling better soon. But that, of course, is a spanner in the works for Origen in the Gauntlet.
Yeah, I mean, it's a last-second mix-up, which, of course, no team is going to want to have coming into the final weeks of play, but also for Origen, that it was a team struggling towards the end of the split. I felt like something needed to change, so we'll see what effect he can have on the roster.
We will see how it turns out, and while it's nice to get to Worlds and to win an LEC title, the most important fight was the one in the race for Superior Analyst, and the winner in the summer split was Laure. Congratulations, a bit of an applause for Miss Laure. She had 79 points, and she bested Fraskuren with 1 point. Well-deserved with the baguette. She's also a Zyra 1 trick, but congratulations to her. What's up with the Analyst? You guys can never win.
Okay. Hold your horses right there, because for a second it was close. If Fnatic won in 5 games, me and you, Sjokz, we would be up here champions.
Great, blaming teams.
Yeah,
it was Fnatic's fault.
Yeah, Fnatic doesn't have enough to deal with. Now they're getting blamed for
I mean, they
should
have won.
Or maybe you should have predicted more in the whole summer split. Yeah. That could also be something. No, congratulations, Laure. We'll be looking forward to if you can defend your title in spring, but we're not there yet. For now, we're going to focus on the LEC regional qualifiers. As we pull up the bracket, we will see that we are fighting for the last spot at Worlds. A slightly altered system here in EU. Fnatic is already locked in Worlds, but they will be playing for seeding.
Yeah, that's the biggest difference, is Fnatic coming in here must play against the winner of the previous series. Now, Schalke, the winner of that game, whoever faces up against Schalke tomorrow, will qualify for Worlds, but the match against Fnatic will determine whether or not you get 2nd seed or have to get 3rd and fight through the play-ins.
Yeah, Yamato, and this is designed, of course, to avoid that a team that didn't do well at all will end up being the 2nd seed, and the 3rd seed goes to the team that is 3rd best as the time when Worlds runs around.
I like the system a lot because they put a lot more emphasis on the form that you bring into summer, because that's what you're going to bring to the World Championship. It doesn't matter, for example, Orgy, if they played fantastically in spring and they automatically qualified on points, all of a sudden you don't know what they're going to do at the World Championship.
Well, they wouldn't, because OG is actually actually the only team in EU Gauntlet history to make it to the Gauntlet whilst getting 0 points in summer. So they're really happy that this new system is around. But it's not easy. I mean, they'll have to go through Splyce and then through Schalke 04 to see if they get there. So it's by no means an easy feat to get to Worlds.
No, it's definitely not. And I think both OG and Splyce are coming in today with something to prove for themselves, because towards the end of the split, Splyce fell off, lost that series against Rogue. Origen, of course, disaster of a summer for them. So this is their last chance to make a moment to really come back with a strong form.
And what do you make of Fnatic? Do you think they're annoyed? They're saying, well, hey, we played these 2 incredible best of 5s. We almost beat G2, and now we got to play for this seeding.
I think this is the sad part about the system. I think it's going to be very clear that Fnatic is the best team out of these 4 ones, but we kind of escaped the 1 under 3 scenarios that we've had in previous seasons. So I'm happy.
And at least they get, if it goes really well, they can see it as very good practice on stage as well too. It has to be done. Now, a lot of good moments coming up in the Gauntlet, but throughout the summer, we've also seen the display of peak League of Legends. And now it is time to highlight the best of the best in My Face When. We've done this before. We have some signs for our analysts.
Ooh.
Which ones do you want?
Give me this. Give me the Ash.
There we go. You can also join in the discussion by spamming in chat what your reaction is. You can spam your emote. You can be fine, dab, tee-hee, or question mark. And those are also the banners that our analysts have. Without further ado, let's take a look at the first clip. It is a surprise to us as well, so hopefully it's nothing embarrassing for anyone on the panel. There we go. Which one is this?
This is Wonder. Oh. Alt-tabbing through all his programs. He's got to search for paint. What's he doing? Can he find it? He got it. He's got it open. He's drawing. What is
Garrett?
going on?
Oh, that was against us. Pretty rude, man. We have history, Wonder.
Yeah, what's the reaction? What's the reaction?
That's a tee-hee if I've ever seen it.
I think he dabbed on us, man.
Oh, he did definitely dab on you guys, that's for sure.
Let's see. Okay, okay, definitely the chat thinks dabbing.
But
or
the chat's always going to vote for dab.
Always?
Like, let's be real.
It's also the easiest to type.
There are a bunch of memers out there. You know what they're voting for.
I love it. It's also in the tradition of G2 with the whole bad boy image. They kept doing things like opening paint in the middle of the game, picking Garen and not knowing what the spells were. So good stuff.
I'm actually amazed that there's no troll out there in chat that's voting for Fine. Because obviously Fine does not fit this play at all, but surely there's at least one of you out there.
Okay, it seems to have settled on the question mark on the Blitz, not knowing what's going on. Let's move on to the second play or moment. That was a great one to start us off on. Here we go. Having a hard time seeing.
Oh, yikes. Look at Mag. Oh! Smithy?
Wait, way to kick him when they're down. Oh.
Ouch.
I feel bad even voting for that.
I mean, I think that's a question mark, but also like, everything's fine. No, that was not fine. That's not fine.
What is it with Sejuani ults and really good junglers missing it?
I don't know.
I think it's because of like you have this momentum when you Q and can ult.
Yeah.
And you can make like this amazing moment, like this flick of the wrist thing.
Flick of the wrist.
But it just doesn't work out sometimes.
It's very difficult.
Yeah.
What do we got? I guess it's also. Okay.
Dab? What do you guys do? See, I told you. Dab will win every time.
I mean, it's the best emote in the game. What
it is.
Say?
It is.
Third play up next. I wonder if we're going to see a positive, like a really great play, or
no,
if
we're
it's
just roasting people.
Embarrassing moments. Here we go.
Fnatic versus Team. Oh, Fnatic Team Liquid.
Oh,
double F flash! No! You've got to use the flash, my man. How does he keep doing it? Oh wait, no, it's Ven.
That's another one.
Wait, it's another. It's all these people for getting flash.
It's an NA special. Save flash for
Endgame.
The playoffs where they won't go.
Every time. Oh, double lift again? No. To AP Shyvana. That's rough.
Oh, embarrassing.
I don't even.
Honestly.
Definitely question
mark. Question mark. Just the answer for everything.
Yeah.
Use your flashes, please.
Pick one out of yours. I think this is fine. No.
This is fine. Yeah, I guess.
Or the other one like, oops, you should have used it. Like the other one.
Oopsie.
Oopsie. You should have used it. What do we got? Oh, we got it. This is fine. Is reigning supreme for that play.
This is NA fans.
NA fans. This is fine. We're gonna be fine. I mean,
it's not fine, guys. It's really not.
Right. At Rift Rivals also, number 2 out of 2 teams.
Yeah, they did get second place.
Still top 2. Now up for our final play. Let's see if it's as good as the previous one. Here we go.
Oh no! Oh no! Oh no!
I know what Shimoto I'm going for.
Oh! Oh no! It's a
I think this is a dab
disaster.
because Sjokz is dabbing on the floor right here.
For context, after G2 Esports won in Athens, Janko said that he screamed so loud that he tumbled on the floor because his body just couldn't handle it. I'm still worried about him, but what are we thinking? A dab? Why is it a dab?
I don't think
I think he just dabbed on the floor.
Oh, yeah.
But he just didn't want to.
I'm going to say this is fine.
This is fine. I mean, he was fine. We checked after.
I mean, he also did just win the title, so like everything was clearly fine.
5 games were happening, and he had all that stress, and then he just like, okay, guys, this is good. We also saw it from a multitude of different angles. It's going to haunt him forever. But, you know, he's the MVP. He won the title. I don't think he's going to be too sad. Thank you all for voting at home, and thank you for lending your analysis to the great moments we had in EU. Now, over the next 3 days, we're not only going to look back at funny moments, we're also going to look back at EU's best moments from Worlds. And what better way to start than with 2015? That was the last time Worlds came to Europe in Paris, London, Brussels, and Berlin. In terms of the representatives from Europe, we had H2K, Origen, and Fnatic. H2K, they fought valiantly, but in the end, it was OG and Fnatic that showed the world what EU was made of. Now there we get some glimpses of the wonderful cities that were host to Worlds 2015, but if we look at the teams to set the scene, Fnatic came off their perfect 18-0 split. They also won an epic final versus Origen, who on their part successfully completed their speed run from Challenger to Worlds in one split. Now, in terms of World's favorites, Fnatic was definitely primed to make a very deep run. There were even hopes for Fnatic to bring that Summoners Cup back to Europe. But when we look at the groups, not an easy feat, I think, especially for Origen, a stacked group with KT Rolster, LGD, and Team Solo Mid. However, they managed to end up top 2 in their group with some very impressive performances. I think we all remember the Darius pentakill from SOAS, and also to keep the NA versus EU salt flowing, there was a 2-0 of Origen versus the NALCS champs TSM. Now Fnatic, they also made it through as first seed. Then they found themselves in the quarterfinals versus LPL's EDG, and they beat them in a swift 3-0. It was all smooth sailing for EU. Origen also made it past Flash Wolves to the semifinal, but eventually though, both teams would fall and run out of steam in the semifinals against SKT and the Coup Tigers respectively. However, 2 semifinal berths brought great pride to Europe, and the question since then always remained, was this our chance? Was this our shot at getting the Summoners Cup back to Europe in Europe? Well, time would tell that we would get another chance in 2019. It is on the cards, but we'll see how it plays out. But right now, we are looking for our 3rd European representative. And Origen, they brought a jungler with an interesting pocket pick to the Gauntlet.
Thanks so much, Sjokz. Now, Zanzarah is going to be the sub-jungler for Origen in their games today. And I wanted to talk about Ornn in the jungle, of all things, for this guy. He's brought it out numerous times in recent memory in his regional finals, as well as just yesterday at EU Masters. And this pick for him is unique. It works because of the passive that Ornn has, which allows him to build items basically anywhere on the map. What this means for Ornn is that he can start off with, a Hunter's Talisman, go ahead and pick up a very early machete after he clears his first 3 camps, and then be super fast in his clear and also higher HP. Any other jungler that tries to go for those 2 items early on has to recall, has to walk all the way back to lane, so it slows them down considerably. Now, Zanzarah on this unique pick does like to go for some very specific items, which allow him to maximize this champion. Now, Ornn has some bonus armor and magic resist scaling in terms of his damage, both on his E as well as his passive that just gives him a whole lot of extra resistances. So he loves to pick out both the Abyssal Mask as well as the Iceborne Gauntlet, which also upgrade into his famed Ornn items later in the game. You'll also notice the Lucidity boots there, which do seem strange as a jungle pick. I generally think that these are a luxury purchase for Zanzarah. Definitely you want to look for the Tobbies or the Merc Treads when you need them, but he does like to get those boots to achieve 45% CDR very early on into the game. Now basically, Ornn does have a unique rune setup as well. You'll see right off the bat, Unsealed Spellbook. What is that? Well, Zanzara likes to go for this because it helps him counter gank. You know, you can switch over to teleport and respond to any types of plays around the map, pick up a ghost when your flash is on cooldown. There's a lot of different options that he can then go for. He also slots into the biscuits to make sure he never has to recall. That's the big strength of Ornn. You never have to go back to base, as well as presence of mind to make sure that his ultimate cooldown is as low as possible, and there's absolutely zero downtime with that. At level 16, that ult's getting below 60 seconds too, so he scales into an absolute monster later on. His early game is a little bit weak. I don't think his ganking is especially strong, but because he's able to stay topped off on HP during his early clears, he does also have a lot of free time to move around the map when his camps are all down and he doesn't have to base. He can show up into lanes, take scuttle crabs, walk into the enemy jungle, do a lot of these things. But at the end of the day, it's all about the scaling on this pick and going into those later game team fights where he really does come online. We're talking those less than 60-second ultimates post level 6. We're talking about the scaling he brings both when within his own kit in terms of utility and tankiness, as well as the Ornn items he can give to his teammates. At levels 14, 15, 16, and 17, he has the ability to upgrade one of his allies' items. That's a whole lot of money's worth of free stats that makes any team with Ornn in it scale into an absolute threat. And that's why I'm super excited to see Zanzara play here today, because he plays wacky champs. The Ornn, we've seen some Nunu recently as well. I'm ready for it all, guys.
So let's separate the two then. One, Yamato, what do you think of the Ornn jungle?
Oh, well, it's a tank. I'm a massive proponent of tanks in the jungle when it comes to crunch time, so maybe it works.
And on the other edge, what do you think of Zanzara coming in and bringing all these possible, you know, strange picks that Splyce might not be prepared for?
Honestly, I don't know so much about Zanzara, but I must imagine that this situation is very tough for him because coming into a team, I think the jungle position is like the blood of the team. You need to make sure that you gain this information from the teammates. You have good synergy all across the board. Jungle is probably the hardest role to slot someone in because they are pretty much the leader of the early game.
I definitely agree, and we have seen in the past that jungle substitutions can help teams just give them new life, because jungle is such an integral role to your team, especially in the early game, as you mentioned. If you bring in a totally different style with a team that has been failing, because let's be honest, Origen in summer was failing, finishing 8th place, I felt like this team needed life, so maybe it's what they need.
Let's see. Of course, Zanzara could play a very big part in the best of 5 tonight. Origen and Splyce are going to fight to salvage their 2019 season and to move on to the next round of the regional qualifier. To recap what happened for both teams in summer, different stories, but with a similar result, I would say. Starting out with Origen, who, Yamato, went to the final in spring and then dropped down all the way to not getting into playoffs in the summer split. What happened?
It's crazy because it was the same story. Like in spring, it was also a rough start, and then they picked it up. Everyone had the same exact expectation coming into summer, but everyone was like, okay, they're gonna pick it up because in practice they were good. I don't know if it was something just transferring that knowledge onto stage or if there was meta issues, but something was clearly a problem, and OG just couldn't put it through.
It's also a big surprise, too, because I felt like in Spring Split, no one had that high of expectations of Origen. We knew they were going to be a good team, but like top 2 seemed a little bit out of reach, especially at the start with how they were performing. But because they got 2nd place, the whole conversation around this team changed. This was no longer a team that was meant to get to playoffs and then go as far as they could. This was a team that had to go to Worlds, and to see them slide so hard in the summer split and now have to play through the Gauntlet in order to get there is a huge blow to this organization.
Yeah, they're making it difficult for themselves, and they'll have to fight really hard, starting with this matchup versus Splyce. Now for Splyce, when we look at their entire year, they're always contesting for that top 3 or even for 2nd, but the same problem that has plagued them before keeps plaguing them. Even in the playoffs, they couldn't get past Rogue in round 1.
Every single time it's the same thing, right? Good season, this year even better. In summer split,
Fantastic.
All of a sudden, this team is supposed to be top 2, top 3 contesting against Fnatic, and even in week 9, they had that 45-minute game against them where we thought this is going to be the 3rd team that we send to Worlds. Then they get absolutely obliterated by Rogue in the first round of playoffs, and all those questions came back when we were talking about the mid-game issues that arose for them in the regular season. Teams weren't able to exploit that, but we saw very clearly Rogue that had prepped for them completely dissect them.
What happened with Splyce?
Honestly, I think it's the common story of this Splyce alteration, where always they have a playstyle that's very good in the regular season because it punishes the teams that can't really carry through on the basic fundamentals of the game. And then when they come into playoffs, all of a sudden creativity comes to play, how aggressive you can be at every point in the game. And Splyce tend to fall short on this. I do believe in Sjokz and Kobe, but the rest of the roster has been unimpressive to me coming into playoffs.
Yeah, and we could look on the other side as well. The Fishio said it jokingly, yeah, we're not playing playoffs because then we have more time to practice for the Gauntlet. So hopefully with all the time that these two teams have had, they have been able to button things up. We're going to find out a little bit more about Splyce at least, because Medic is standing by with their coach.
Thank you very much, guys. I am joined by Duke backstage here. Now, Duke, we saw Splyce struggle near the end of the split and then have a pretty disappointing series against Rogue. What have you guys done in the time off you've had until now to prepare for these series?
Yeah, we had a slump at the last 3 weeks, I think, as of the loss against Fnatic, which really shattered us at the end of the split, and we were just the shadow of ourselves in playoffs. So, I mean, every team has some cycles like this, and it was really we hit rock bottom, so we had to reset, start from the beginning. And that's what we did. We tried to approach the game a bit differently, focus more on ourselves, trying to build confidence again, trying to find the key elements that we could work on for the Gauntlet. And I think we are ready.
Can you give us any insight as to what those key elements might be?
I mean, I can't give you precisely exactly what we worked on, but it was more isolating the few things that prevented us from having a gameplay that was just flowing, and making us able to build a solid game plan at any point in the game. So we isolated the key factors that were preventing us from communicating properly around the right information. And yeah, we worked a lot on that. We really isolated 3-4 things to work on for this Gauntlet, and it was a bit of a different approach than before. Sometimes we were a bit too over the place, maybe. So here we really focused on ourselves and a few things.
Oh, thank you very much for that insight. Now, coming into this series, we saw Origen has had to sub out Cold, their jungler, because of a medical issue. They brought in Zanzara, who's been playing in the EU Masters. Has that changed your game plan at all?
No, again, we just focus on ourselves. Of course, it changes a bit. This guy has a specific champion pool, but the thing is, it's really hard to prepare against Origen. They haven't played for more than a month, I think. I guess they changed a lot of things, and we didn't want to overthink it, in the sense that if we come to a plan that is too set in stone and actually they have something totally different prepared, then we might be kind of thrown off guard. So we focus on ourselves a lot. Of course, we prepared a few things for them, but I think we are our own enemy at the moment. If we play at our best, I think we'll win.
Well, we'll have to wait and see. Thank you very much for talking to me. Good luck on the series today. I hope for a great best of 5. Back to you guys.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it is quite interesting, because I think we have two camps when we look at the substitution coming up for Origen going up against Splyce. On the one hand, you could say you never want to play with someone unexpectedly that isn't used to playing with your lineup. But on the other hand, you may have that thought of, well, maybe if they needed some fire in that early game, and this is a guy that flashes over dragon walls, so maybe that can help them. Where do you guys find yourselves?
Right, so I think the important thing here is that not a lot of people have high expectations of Origen coming into this Gauntlet in the first place. Yes, we know what their peaks have been, but with their summer performance, they did not reach that same level. So people come in and they say, well, teams like Splyce or Sjokz are the favorites. So using that logic, you need something to change, whether that is just to improve while all these other teams were at playoffs, or bring in a new member, which could be Zanzara.
Yeah,
could crash and burn, could be good.
Well, it's different because you're talking like it's a planned thing, which it isn't. This is a guy that yesterday was playing in EU Masters. They got knocked out and now has to perform here on the biggest stage thus far to keep this Origen Worlds. I mean, I can't even imagine what this rookie must be going through.
I just think when it comes to Origen, I don't think this is something that they wanted to do. Thinking about the roster and what players they have so much experience on this roster. I think 5 weeks could mean so much, and maybe this jungle changes that entire game plan altogether. I think, if I have to put my money on something, I think Origen can take 5 weeks and change a complete form, complete kind of identity as well. They're just too smart to fall short, I feel.
Yeah, we'll see how that changes with Zanzara coming on now in the jungle. And we can't forget, there is also so much class and talent on that Splyce roster, notably in the jungle. Ender, how do you think Ender, you're not playing.
I would do great. If you put me in, Origen, you put me in, I'll take care of everything.
How do you think Xerxes going to deal with this change?
Well, I think so. It's actually really interesting because one of the best things about Xerxes, I feel, is he's very smart in tracking the enemy jungler. And as we were just seeing on the screen before we quickly cut, Zanzara is a guy that will just flash over Dragon Wall to invade your blue buff. Like, he's absolutely crazy. So to me, I think if any player is going to be able to see these unique paths, like this is just absolutely ridiculous. Look at this guy go. It's crazy. But if there's any player to like see that or be able to like expect these types of things, it has to be Xerxes.
I think when it comes to Sjokz, even in the series against Rogue, I think many of those games he was out jungling Inspired. Sometimes that's not so noticeable if your lanes are underperforming because jungle is just a brutal role. But I think Xerxes is going to be the difference maker if Splyce is going to take it all the way through this gauntlet.
Yeah, I think Xerxes is good at two very important things on his team. One, I think he's very good at covering his lanes when they need help, like when they're pushing and potentially vulnerable to ganks. And he's also just one of our best junglers in terms of efficiency. He's always min-maxing, you know, his camps respawning, making sure that he's like hitting level 6 first before the enemy jungler, which is a small thing that's hard to notice, but definitely plays a big role.
Yeah, Xerxes, fantastically important for that lineup. But when you find yourself in the regional qualifier, when your goal is Worlds, that does mean that some players were not performing up to par in recent months. Who would that be for Splyce? Who needs to step up in this weekend to make Splyce go to the World Championship, rather?
Well, for me, I think that Kabi is a player that I'm always going to be watching, not because he's been underperforming or anything like that, but he's the best player on this team, and when this team is looking at its peak, they're putting the resources into him. It's Splyce team fighting in the later stage of the game, and he can be an absolute monster. So for me, for Splyce to go the distance, it has to be Kabi that we're looking at, just in terms of how they play their game, and who has to be dealing the damage and carry.
I think when there's a funny joke in the pro scene is commit to your memes. You know, all teams have memes about them, and it was always Splyce late game and Kobe carrying. You know, commit to it if you're going to win a gauntlet.
Hey, it doesn't become a meme unless it has some truth to it in general. So then we can say the same for Origen, also underperformed to their goals, but they can still make it to Worlds. Yamato, if there was one person who you want to see shine on that Rift today, who is it?
I'm looking at my boy Nukeduck. You know, Nukeduck is a very, very special player because I think, I think he has the potential to be the best player on the Rift in almost any game that he plays. I think his biggest weakness is that he needs. He doesn't take that much charge in the early game. If his team is doing worse, if his super player is not roaming into mid at the right times, if his jungler is not at mid at the right times, he's going to struggle. But if Nukeduck gets to play a split pusher, for example, and transitions into a good mid to late game, all of a sudden he takes over. We get to see the classic Nukeduck that played Fizz back in the Lemon Dogs days, that carried games. We get to see the spring split Nukeduck that played the Zed and split pushed the game. That's the Nuke that I want to see today on a split pusher that gets transitioned into good mid-late game.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all have the memories of the Corki earlier on in the season where he came up huge and did all the damage. For me, though, I think a big problem for Origen in this summer split was the jungle mid lane synergy between these two players, because it felt like whenever Nukeduck wanted to do something in mid lane, like push in the wave or take an aggressive trade, Cold wasn't there ready to back him up. So for me, I just want Nukeduck to bring this new player in, tell him where to be and when to be there to help him set up for that mid lane and allow Nukeduck to shine.
Well, in terms of desire of getting to the World Championship, Nukeduck's last Worlds appearance was the 21st of September of 2013. Almost 6-year anniversary, so he really wants to get back there. Now, Splyce and Origen, they have been at the cusp of greatness in 2019, but tonight, one of them will fall short of a shot at redemption.
Origen, one of the most storied organizations in European League of Legends. Fans were excited to see them come in with a new roster that put up extremely strong performances in the regular split.
Fnatic, can they turn the fight? Nemesis is alive and well. They're going to try to get a little bit more, but Nukeduck is simply too strong. They were counted out, but here in the Ahoy Arena, OG have cut down Fnatic.
After coming back from Rift Rivals, Origen fans were disappointed to see the team fail to fix their issues.
Nukeduck going into the back line, looking to find that initiation. TSM goes down. Origen keeps the EU win streak alive.
It all culminated with them failing to make it to playoffs.
A somber story for the Origen lineup from 2nd to 8th. Of course, their spring performance will buy them a second chance in the regional qualifier.
This is their last chance. Longtime underdogs, Splyce failed to make a comeback to Worlds after their 2016 run. This year, Splyce have shown that they are not to be underestimated.
Dash back and making out safety. Fancy forward comes in from Humanoid. They're trying to turn the play. North Darren is a hero. That was a monster play.
They gave up the long-held second spot to Fnatic in 2 devastating losses at the end of the split.
Continues in his AD carry versus AD carry, and Kobe is feeling himself. The Wrangler says, not today.
Which seemed to affect their performance even more going into playoffs.
Looks like he finds it. It's a beautiful engage. Everyone goes in. Humanoid is left holding his head in his hands. He doesn't even get to participate. The Akali is useless. Woolite takes down Kami. Rogue have destroyed Splyce.
Let's not forget, though, that we have seen greatness within this team. We know what they are capable of. We need to see Splyce reset their mental after their short playoff run, and we want to see a return of the calculated beasts they were early in the split. Regional qualifiers have never been so exciting, and it all starts now.